Are you wondering who to start at quarterback, tight end, and defense? Well, in week 4, I've got you. This is my week 4 rankings of all of those positions. It's ugly in the quarterback streets. It's even uglier in the defense streets. There's only about 12 of each that I like. So in 12-man leagues, you're in luck. But outside of that, I'm going to try my best to help you. Let's go ahead and get into it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We are growing at a rapid rate. It is exciting, and I am thankful for all of that. Without further ado, we've got the mobile elite rushing quarterbacks. Start them every single week, regardless of matchups. And then going into A tier, you have Justin Herbert. He's been on fire, 300 plus passing yards in 2 of his 3 games. And those have been harder matchups. Stay in the flames with Justin Herbert versus the Giants. Caleb Williams versus Las Vegas. He took 0 sacks last week, expecting more pressure versus the Raiders. But quarterback 3 on the season, coming off a 300-yard 4-touchdown game. And then Jordan Love at Dallas. Love had a down week against the Browns, but they're elite. But Dallas, they are not. Russ, who just lost his job, threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. Caleb Williams threw for 304 touchdowns. Love should have a field day with this matchup as well. Patrick Mahomes versus Baltimore historically has been great against the Ravens in regular season games. A lot of those were with Tyreek Hill. No Tyreek Hill, but he's getting Xavier Worthy back from the best of my knowledge. That's what it's kind of looking like according to practice reports. It's the highest over-under of the week, 48.5 points. And the Ravens have scored 41 points in 2 of their games and 30 points in another. So expecting a high-scoring one here in week 4. And then Drake May versus Carolina. Carolina's defense is technically the best versus quarterbacks, but they've played Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, and Michael Penix Jr. Drake May's the quarterback 6 on the season. He's finally running more, and he's had back-to-back touchdown games. Stay with Drake May. And then starting off B tier, Bo Nix versus Cincinnati. This will be the easiest matchup he's faced so far. He's had tougher matchups, and he hasn't looked bad in those, but we do need him to run more and to pass more. That's where he's really been lacking. Daniel Jones at LA versus the Rams. Arguably his toughest matchup of the season. I was happy what I saw just last week versus the Titans. But Indiana Jones, he hasn't thrown for 2 touchdowns yet, and he's still getting it done. Just last week, he only had 1 touchdown, still 15 points. Daniel Jones might be this year's Sam Darnold, where you're not happy to start him, but it's better than what the name actually says when you just look at the stats. Geno Smith versus Chicago, 3rd easiest matchup for quarterbacks. The tape has not been great. He's been getting sacked a ton, but versus Chicago, McCarthy had 3 scores in his very first NFL start. Jared Goff threw for 300 plus and 5 touchdowns. And Dak looked bad last week against them, but he lost CeeDee Lamb almost immediately. I'm fine with Geno as a streamer this week. Baker Mayfield versus the Eagles. His fantasy output has gone down 3 consecutive weeks. He's now lost Mike Evans, but he should be getting Chris Godwin back. Godwin's previous returns to action, he has taken the field almost right away, and they'll certainly need him in this one versus the Eagles. And Jaden Daniels, you might be surprised that he is this low. He's playing Atlanta. Atlanta is the 4th best against quarterbacks. He's still not cleared as of Wednesday, so obviously you're going to need to monitor that. But if he plays, I'm perfectly fine playing him. It is a knee injury, so do keep that in mind that he's a great passer, and he can get you points that way, but the way he really gives you that elite ceiling, as the S-tier quarterbacks do, is the rushing upside. Lack of rushing attempts in the early weeks as he still recovers from his knee injury. And then Justin Fields, we're talking about rushing ability. I am perfectly fine throwing him in versus Miami on Monday Night Football if he does play. It's a juicy matchup. They give up the 2nd most points to quarterbacks, but he's still in concussion protocol as of Thursday, so he might be practicing, but he needs to clear the protocol. That is priority number 1. If I have Justin Fields and I don't know if he's going to be playing, he's not cleared before Sunday, I'm going with someone else. I'm going with a Geno Smith. I'm going with a Brock Purdy, somebody else who I can grab off of waivers and plug and play. Justin Fields has one of the highest ceilings because of his rushing output, but if he's not playing, and I don't know he's playing before Sunday, I can't possibly go into Monday not knowing that. And then Brock Purdy versus the Jaguars, limited on Wednesday's practice. He lost almost all of his receiving weapons, it seems like, but he does get Demarcus Robinson back for whatever that means to you. Didn't look awful in week 1 versus a very strong Seattle Seahawks defense, so there is a little bit of optimism with that. And then C tier, we have Jared Goff. Tough matchup here. We're specifically getting into streaming categories, so I'll try to blitz through a lot of these quarterbacks. The tough matchup versus the Browns. The Browns shut down both Joe Burrow and Jordan Love, so Jared Goff is almost completely off of my list. Kyler Murray versus the Seahawks tonight on Thursday Night Football. I posted about this one on X, so if you aren't already, go ahead and follow me over there. But since 2021, Kyler hasn't had a game above 18 fantasy points in 4-point passing touchdown leagues versus the Seahawks. I like to look at those divisional matchups and just kind of see how they've done and historically. And Kyler has had nothing but bad outings against the Seahawks. Kyler's looked below average, and the Seahawks have looked legit. They're 6th best against quarterbacks. They have 5 interceptions through 3 games. I'm avoiding Kyler where I can. Matthew Stafford versus the Colts. He won't win you your week. He won't lose you your week. You love his weapons, but he doesn't add much value unless he throws for 3 touchdowns, which he's only done twice in the last 22 games. Sam Darnold at Arizona on Thursday Night Football. Back-to-back 2-touchdown games. He was benched last week because they blew the Saints' backs out, but Arizona's defense has stepped up a little bit. It's still an ugly streaming option, but if you're in that field of maybe I start Sam Darnold tonight over Justin Fields, I am perfectly fine with that if you need to. Dak Prescott versus Green Bay. He hasn't been good for fantasy. They've been running the ball very effectively, and now he's lost CeeDee Lamb, and the Packers are one of the best defenses. They're second against quarterbacks. Avoid Dak where you can. And going on to D tier, we have Carson Wentz versus Pittsburgh. This is the Dublin, Ireland game, so myself, maybe others included, are going to have to be getting up at 6:30 a.m. if they want to watch that game. You can pass on the Steelers. You can pass on Carson Wentz. They ran the ball a ton last week. I'm expecting more of that. The Steelers are top 10 in allowing rushing yards. Bryce Young at New England. This one here, good news, you can pass on the Patriots, but you can also pass on Bryce Young. He needs 3+ touchdowns to have a good fantasy day. And Jackson Dart versus the Chargers in LA. You might be surprised that Dart is this high. I am too. When I did my rankings, I looked at it and I said, hey, there's an unknown factor with Jackson Dart. This is not an ideal matchup, but I'm willing to gamble. I've seen what Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Michael Penix are. I want to see if I can get a rushing quarterback, see if I can get a little bit of juice out of my quarterback position. Tua versus the Jets. You need 302 touchdowns from him to really have a good start. He's not running on the ground. The good news is the last time these two matched up, he did just that. The bad news is this offense in 2025 looks awful. Trevor Lawrence in San Francisco versus the 49ers. The 49ers are 7th best against quarterbacks. Although they've played some middling ones, I think they're going to be playing another middling one here with Trevor Lawrence. And Michael Penix Jr. versus the Commanders. Let me read this stat off for you. Michael Penix in his 6 starts of his career has been the quarterback 7, 10, 25, 30, 31, and 32 on the week. He was benched last week because of a bad game. You should just look somewhere else. I'm contractually obligated to rank all 32 quarterbacks, but if you're starting one of these guys in a single quarterback league, you've already lost your week. I'm sorry. If you're starting one of these guys in a Superflex league, you're probably the underdog. If for some reason you're deciding between 2 of these guys in week 4 to start in a Superflex league, I am sorry. And if you haven't already, before we get on to the tight ends, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm coming out with these types of videos each and every single week, and I go live every single Sunday to help you with your start-sit decisions. Let's go ahead and go on to the tight ends. Much like the quarterbacks, you've got your elites at the top. S tier with Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. Regardless of the matchup, you always start them. It just so happens that Trey McBride does have the easiest matchup, being the Seahawks, for tight ends, so that is nice. And A tier, we've got some guys, I like to call these the second receiving options on their team. Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson, and Sam Laporta. Super happy with any of these guys as my tight end here in this week. Their matchups aren't all that bad. And then in B tier, it's a tier where it's just pure volume. You've got Hunter Henry versus Carolina. He leads the Patriot pass catchers in all things receiving. Juwan Johnson at Buffalo, getting a ton of targets. TJ Hawkinson versus Pittsburgh. This is the Ireland game. He found the end zone with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Perhaps he could do that again while he's in Ireland. And then Travis Kelce versus Baltimore. This is the highest over-under of the week. I could see where they would finally need Travis Kelce in a game. C tier, these are a good chance to find the end zone guys. Dalton Kincaid versus the New Orleans Saints, 16.5-point favorites. And Mark Andrews at Kansas City, the highest over-under of the week, as I've already mentioned. And then in D tier, I've got the athletic hopefuls. These are athletic guys who you're hoping can get into the end zone. Getting a little bit of volume with some of them, but again, this is purely a streaming option if you're at the tight end position. Harold Fannin Jr. and David Njoku versus Detroit. Brenton Strange versus San Francisco. And Kyle Pitts versus the Commanders. And then wrapping up E tier, this is you need a touchdown or you're very unhappy. Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Cade Otton, and Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson's a little bit of narrative street. We saw Jackson Dart target the tight end position a lot in the preseason. He made Greg Dulcich look like a superstar. And again, if you haven't already, why not? Go ahead, subscribe to the channel, get some more help. I'm just here to help you win your fantasy league. Now, let's go on to defenses and wrap this thing up. Starting at the top, S tier, you have the Buffalo Bills, Texans, and Broncos. They're all great defenses playing bad offenses. Really excited for that. You got the Broncos versus Cincinnati, the Texans versus the Titans, and the Bills versus the Saints. A tier, I've got the good defenses playing poor offenses. B tier, this one here is good or great defenses, but they're playing average or strong offense. Going on to C tier, outside of 12-team leagues, I don't recommend really starting anybody from C tier down, but if for whatever reason you have to, this is how I would play them. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. If you have a 32-team league for whatever reason and you have to start the Saints, I would just, I'm not even kidding. I would rather start no defense than start the Saints. They're 16.5-point underdogs. The Bills are going to run up the score in this one. And that's it. We got through it. The quarterbacks, tight ends, and defenses for week 4. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Again, I am going live on Sunday to help you with those start-sit decisions. It'll be 1 hour before kickoff, and I will see you then.